My name is Brandon Oldham. I'm with CalStart. I'm a senior project manager of EV charging solutions here at CalStart. I work with a light duty team, charging infrastructures team, and excited to share today from plan to plug-in incentives and tools for multifamily charging. Charge at Home is a program led by Fourth Mobility, and throughout the presentation today, we're going to learn from our speakers about what it takes to plan and build out incentives and tools to deploy charging at multifamily charging properties across the nation. So myself, I work at CalStart, and my colleague Patricia Milberry, she also works at CalStart. Patricia joined CalStart in 2023 as a project manager for the Clean Fuels and Infrastructure team, focused on the Communities in Charge Level 2 incentive project. Prior to joining CalStart, Patricia worked at PepsiCo Inc. as an associate manager of economic development. In this position, she performed contract review and worked closely with the fleet transportation team to secure incentives and maintain compliance. Patricia holds her Bachelor of Science in Political Science from Texas Wesleyan University and Juris Doctorate from Thomas Jefferson School of Law. Patricia, thank you so much for being here as a panelist today. Mara serves as the EV Charging Program Manager at the Washington State Department of Commerce. And in this role, she leads a team supporting the development of over 5,000 charging ports at 500 sites across the state of Washington. Her team is focused on creating EV charging that is more equitable, convenient, and accessible for all Washingtonians. Prior to entering the EV space, Mara worked as an environmental educator, led rural community development initiatives, and earned her Master of Environmental Science from the Yale School of the Environment. Out of the office, Mara enjoys kayaking, gravel biking, and checking out too many books from the library. Thanks for being here, Mara. Finally, Michael from Fourth. Michael serves as a senior program associate with the workplace charging team, providing assistance to organizations as they adopt EV infrastructure. Prior to joining Fourth, Michael founded a company to deploy sustainable EV infrastructure in Hilo, Hawaii. He holds a Master's of Business Administration with a focus on sustainable business development from Willamette University. Thank you for being here. All right. Before we jump in and hear from our panelists, I wanted to go ahead and give a quick overview and speak to the case for EV charging at multifamily properties. So EV ownership is on the rise. EV drivers want to charge where they park. Two of the most popular places where cars are parked are both where people live and where they work, and also where they shop. So being able to charge at multifamily properties where people are living and their cars are parked overnight, during the day, while at other places that they're visiting multifamily properties, EV drivers basically will make decisions about where they live based on access to EV charging. So being able to charge at your residence in a multifamily housing with charging versus not charging incentivizes more folks with EVs to choose one property or another. And there's 40 plus million renters that live in approximately 23 million apartment homes. So just to contextualize the market, and 75% of apartment households have at least one vehicle. So EV drivers prefer charging convenience and affordability, home charging over charging speed. And that's another great aspect of charging at multifamily properties. So definitely we're going to talk about solutions today and incentives that are focused on level 2 charging deployments, but there's a number of case studies on the website for Charge at Home that also highlight charging at various levels. So level 1 charging speeds, your standard 120 volt outlet, even being able to have access to that for folks living at multifamily properties is a convenience. So what does Charge at Home do? Charge at Home provides tools and resources to advance the adoption of EV charging at multifamily housing properties. I'd say highly recommend everyone to check out the website. There's a number of case studies, and Charge at Home, led by Fourth, offers guidance and best practices for EV charging, which includes financial incentives, linking you to two financial incentives, case studies for successful deployments, connecting you to resources, and then also a project builder tool to help really scope out some of the financial aspects of what a project would look like to get it up and started. One thing I do want to highlight is later on this month, there is another roundtable session. It's on September 18th, 10 a.m. Pacific. Um, Please share that, join if you'd like as well. That is going to be, I believe, the last roundtable series. Um, and it's going to go over detailed market segmented EV installation toolkits, EV charging project builder. I'll give a quick preview of that today, but also like more in depth and on the website. And some of the additional resources, one pagers, case studies, site specific consultations. So if you know of a multifamily housing property that would like some specific guidance, technical assistance, dive in either into the details or just how to get started, please reach out to the team at Charge at Home. We're all available to basically assist and connect you to the right resources so you can get your project started. Like I mentioned, there is a project builder tool. I do want to highlight this tool. It's not just a online calculator. Using this tool in conjunction with reaching out to the team at Charge at Home really dives into the specifics of a site. So if you're starting from scratch, maybe you have chargers on a property from a previous project, or you're in the middle of a current project and you just want to almost gut check how's it going. Sometimes, depending on the amount of chargers you're deploying, you need to get a new utility service run. That can cost a lot. So if say you're in the middle of a project and you just want to know kind of different options, if you're at a good middle point, there's a lot of different options for deployments. You can do storage, you can throttle charging, you can use software to allow different queuing systems. So please check out the chargeathome.org tools website and see the project builder. If you enter in some site specific details, if you know them, that's the first step. Then also reaching out to the team, giving us some info about your site. We can schedule one-on-one calls, learn more about your property, and basically connect you to the perfect next step. I'll leave this slide here for a little bit, but please reach out. There's some emails, LinkedIn's, and then subscribing to the newsletter to know when there's new case studies or being able to connect you with different people in the network. All right. Also, one thing I want to mention during the presentation from our panelists, if any questions come to mind, feel free, note them in the chat. We're going to queue them up. At the end of the show, we're going to have a Q&A discussion portion so we can ask our panelists, Charge at Home, anything in the industry. If you have a specific almost question to a project you'd like to ask, happy to open it up and basically dive into some details and have a discussion at the end. And with that, I will introduce Patricia and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Patricia Milberry. I am a lead project manager here on Communities in Charge here at CalStart. I will go ahead and we'll get started with a brief project overview. You can go ahead to the next slide. A little bit about Communities in Charge. It's California's market accelerating light duty EV charging incentive program. Our project focuses on level 2 EV deployment, and we are moving in and making level 1 charging available as well. Our program is funded by the California Energy Commission Clean Transportation Program, and utilizes greenhouse gas reduction fund allocations to support zero emission vehicle infrastructure projects. Communities in Charge is designed to transform EV accessibility, rapidly catalyze new markets, and deploy level 2 EV charging stations. We're incredibly excited to announce that our funding wave 4 just opened, and it opened August 5th, and it will be open until January 9th, 2026. And we're very excited. If you have any questions, we definitely welcome you to reach out. We have some very, very big updates for Funding Wave 4. One of that being primarily that Funding Wave 4 will focus exclusively on multifamily housing and sites serving multifamily housing. We will have a longer application window, as we had mentioned. We extended it. It was originally open from August 5th until November, but we made the extension to have it open until January, and we'll actually be processing applications on a rolling basis. Um, so if an applicant Awesome. If an applicant in Funding Wave 4 receives a notices of non-award while the application window is still open, they can go ahead and submit a new application on or before January 9th. This is new for our program. We haven't had this offered before, so we hope folks take the opportunity and reapply. As I had previously mentioned, Funding Wave 4 will offer level 1 charging beginning October 7th. Our team is currently in the process of finalizing that, and so we'll have more information available closer to October. Next slide, please. So as I had mentioned, Funding Wave 4 focuses on multifamily housing sites and multifamily housing related. So I'm guessing you're probably thinking, what do we mean by multifamily housing related? It includes eligible real property that's located within an eighth of a mile of a multifamily housing related site, and it's suitable for installing level 2 EVSEs. So our accessibility criteria, we have two options. It's open to the public, including multifamily housing residents, at least 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, excluding holidays, with clear signage and no use of excessive fees. The other option is it's intended for use by residents of one or more multifamily housing sites. This isn't, it has to be open and accessible for multiple folks to use. So during the application process to kind of fulfill this requirement, applicants have to show that the site is a walkable distance for accessibility, and they have to submit a form with their application that's completed by the multifamily housing property owner and the authorized representative. This is confirming that it is in fact within an eighth of a mile. So with communities in charge, we do have fund allocation based on region. So for this funding wave, we have 9.5 million dedicated to the northern, 17 million for the central, 11.5 for the eastern, and 18.5 for the southern. Next slide, please. Additional project updates. So we do have an applicant cap, so no single entity can receive more than 25% of the total funding available. The reasoning behind this is we want more folks to participate and have a larger diversity within the program. That's kind of the methodology behind it. Our team is very hands-on, I will say that. And if there's any questions about the application process, the requirements, our team, we make ourselves available for office hours. So I definitely recommend scanning the QR code if you are interested in applying and getting some more information. In contrast to, if you want to back up, Brandon, thank you. In contrast to previous funding waves, we had taken away stacking, but it is now back. So I recommend if you are interested in our program and you want to see how stacking plays into that, our newest Funding Wave 4 implementation manual is live on our website. If you want to visit section 2.1, it will lay out the programs that we are compatible with for stacking. One last update here for Funding Wave 4 is we have updated the base charging port incentive from 6,500 to 8,500. Next slide, please. All right, as I had mentioned, the base incentive per connector has been up for this funding wave. So we give 8,500 per connector. And then for multifamily housing project sites that are related to tribal government, tribal entity, or non-governmental organizations serving tribal communities, you get an additional 3,500 on top of the 8,500. So You can you can receive up to 12,000 potentially per connector. Next slide, please. We do have a connector minimum and maximum for our program. There has to be at least 4 connectors with a maximum of 40. The minimum connector count that can be dual, so you could potentially have 2 dual port chargers just as long as you have a minimum of 4 connectors with a maximum of 40. If an applicant is interested in installing more than 40 chargers, they are welcome to do that. Just any amount outside of the 40, that would be their responsibility. Our program would only cover up to 40 connectors. Next slide, please. So I want to go ahead and go over a little bit of just the basic applicant eligibility. So the applicant has to be the property owner, the lessee, or the authorized representative, and it has to be the one who directly incurs the cost. Those are the 2 biggest high points to cover, especially one being whoever is going to incur the cost for the project really needs to be the one filling out the application. Next slide, please. Project site eligibility. Again, for Funding Way 4, it has to be multifamily housing or multifamily housing related and fall within that definition outlined in our implementation manual. The project site must be well lit, secured, and in compliance with all U.S. Federal and California laws. And any level 1 or level 2 EVSEs made accessible to the public, they have to be available at least 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, excluding holidays. It must be shared and not be assigned or otherwise allocated to any one individual. Again, the idea behind here is we want these chargers to be used often and by the public. Kind of defeats the purpose if it's just for one individual. Lastly, single family dwellings, accessory dwelling types, duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, they're not eligible project sites. So just keep that in mind as you move through the application. Next slide, please. As far as we get to equipment eligibility, all of our level 2 technical requirements from previous Funding Wave 3 are still in place. We do require OCPP 2.0 certified core and advanced security for level 2. If you want some more information regarding our technical requirements, I recommend you visit the Communities in Charge website. There we have our list of eligible equipment and upcoming technical updates. We're still finalizing the requirements for level 1. That's the only reason why I did not include it here, but we do have the Communities in Charge newsletter that will keep you up to date. So as October approaches, we will have more information, and October 7th, we will officially launch level 1 and have all of those requirements available to the public. Next slide, please. In previous funding waves, we had the Communities Connections, which was really great to bring in a diverse group of applicants. We still have Community Connections available, but it has to have that multifamily housing component with it as well. And it is a good way to earn extra points on the scoring rubric during your application evaluation. Next slide. A little bit about our scoring and tiering process. If you are familiar with Communities in Charge, we previously had 3 tiers. We have taken tier 3 away, and we only have tier 1 and 2 now. This is just a very quick checklist of the documentation that's required when you submit your application. So the site verification form, your final site design, issued building permit, eligible equipment, and your building permit application if you're falling in tier 2. I should preface by saying you don't have to have you don't have to be one of the community connections as I discussed in the previous slide. in order to qualify for communities in charge. That's just an extra on top, but definitely not a requirement. So don't let that deter you from applying. Letters of support, those are typically from the community in support of the project. Those again are not required. Those are completely optional. The key distinction here is that Tier 1 applicants will receive a notice of final award. In Tier 2, you're almost there, but you're still waiting on getting a few documents. You'd be considered Tier 2, and you get 90 days to submit those updated documents and update your tier status to Tier 1. Next slide, please. This is just a truncated version of the previous slide. So if you're able to submit all of the documents for Tier 1, you would fall within that readiness tier. And then if you're missing a couple of things, waiting on the issued building permit, if you only submitted the application, you would fall within our Tier 2. Next slide, please. This is what our application scoring rubric looks like. So as you'll see at the top, if it's a community connection, that is not required. You can potentially get up to 5 additional points. If the project site is located in DIC, LIC, or tribal, you can get awarded from 3 to 5 points. And the local support, that's based on the number of letters you submit. So it's per letter point allocation, you get a maximum number of 3. So overall across the board, you can get a maximum number of 13 points. Next slide, please. As we had mentioned, here is a little bit of a further breakdown for our regions and our tier allocation. So we'll start with the northern, then go southern, central, and eastern for our Tier 1. And for Tier 2, we will go northern, southern, central, and eastern. Next slide, please. Just a recap for if a notice of conditional award, that's if you fall within the Tier 2. So the next step would be you need to submit the issued building permit. You have 90 days to do that. And then our team will verify the documents and we will issue a notice of final award. A notice of final award is issued to all Tier 1 awardees. There's no additional steps after that. The installation window is 270 days, and then they would submit their final payment request through our incentive processing center. Next slide, please. And these are some really great resources for our team. Again, we are very hands-on. I would recommend you visit our Communities in Charge website. We have some really great information about the program. We have past webinars that we've hosted that walks you through the application process. We have examples of key documents that are needed. And we're also available by email. You can set up office hours with us and you'll get one of us to answer any questions you may have. Next slide, please. I would recommend to stay up to date, with changes for the current funding wave and in any future funding waves is to sign up for our newsletter. Take a look at our implementation manual. You can see how the project has evolved across all 4 funding waves now. Those are all available on our website. And we just recommend you reach out to our team if you have any questions. This is just a recap of upcoming important dates. So the incurred cost date, June 11th, 2025. That's just the date that our implementation manual has been released. So costs for the project can start to incur after that June 11th date. Our application window opened August 5th and it will close January 9th. And it will be awarded on a rolling basis. So give us about 4 weeks after your application has been submitted and you'll get a notification for your award. Next slide, please. That is all I have. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Some great information there about communities in charge. So definitely recommend if you have any questions or you'd like to dive through some examples of projects, or if you have a project that you're working on specifically, please share that and happy to have a discussion during the discussion portion. All right. Next up, Mara, I will go ahead and stop sharing here and let you share.
Great. Thank you so much, Brandon. Hi, everyone. My name is Mara McDonald, and I'm the EV Charging Program Manager at the Department of Commerce at Washington State. And I'm so excited to talk a little bit about the Washington Electric Vehicle Charging Program, or WAVE CP, as we like to call it, and specifically about our multifamily housing incentives. I'm going to talk a little bit about our current program, some project successes, lessons learned, and then I get to give a preview of our next funding round, which we had hoped to open right now, but we'll be opening at the end of the month. So a little bit more on the preview than specific details. The WAVE CP, Washington EV Charging Program, is a charging program that encompasses public, fleet, multifamily, and workplace charging. So basically 3 programs in one. And in the 2023-2025 biennium, we had about $100 million to fund this first iteration of the program, which the goal is to make EV charging more affordable, accessible, and convenient to all Washingtonians. And as you can see from the stats of our current program and the grantees under contract, I think that we're doing a really good job of dispersing these funds with $99 million going out to 79 grantees across the state at 525 sites. And we're building over 5,000 ports, including 600 L3s and almost 5,000 L2s. 50% in overburdened communities. Yes, super exciting. We're really happy about this. And in the multifamily specifically, we had about $28 million reserved for multifamily, and we have $26 million under contract. So pretty good rate there, not too much churn. We have 11 grantees dispersing those funds. With 2 of our grantees actually doing 75% of our sites. So we do have 2 sites 2 grantees that really act as aggregators, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in some of my next slides. But this is funding 192 sites and 3,000 L2 ports. So the majority of the L2 ports that our program's funded. And 50% of these ports are going to overburdened communities, or 47%. So this has been a really great first iteration of the program, and we've learned a lot. We've been able to talk to a lot of partners. And this is, of course, funded by Washington's Climate Commitment Act, and something that we're really proud to see those dollars going to work in communities. So we've had this funding out for funds were awarded in early 2024, and grantees got under contract, and work really began in late 2024, early 2025. And the way that our program was set up is grantees had 270 days to install their charging projects. And that was definitely an ambitious timeline, especially as we faced some clarifications that we needed to do with grantees regarding power sharing, and as just like the first iteration of this program, we were working out, the administrative support to ensure success. But as of today, we have at least 26 sites that are complete with about 500 ports installed. And the average cost has been a little under $10,000 per port. Our awards range from $7,500 to $10,000. So this definitely hits in that range. We anticipate almost all of our multifamily sites to be completed by the end of December, and we're really excited for that to happen. And even though we didn't quite get our 270-day installation date for all of our sites, we're just over that at about a year for most of our sites. And, the main reason for those needs for extensions was, things like transformer upgrades that people didn't anticipate with when they're doing a lot of multifamily ports. That's something that a lot of our grantees who this is their first charging program or charging project, they just didn't anticipate. And we all know how long those times are for transformer upgrades. Of course, this year has been a pretty uncertain year for funding for a lot of our partners. And so a lot of projects that had funding or had plans, with inflation, with tariffs, with supply chain and other programs being cut, whether at the state, local, or federal level, it's really put funding into some uncertainty. So people had to put some pause on some projects, and now they're ramping up again. We've also had a little bit of churn with our site hosts who signed on during the application period. And by the time it got to contract and the time the utility review happened, they were like, we're not sure we want to do this anymore. And so we've had to find other site hosts. And that's just been a really great experience to learn about what are those partnership models that really work for these projects. And so that brings me into some of I could talk for forever about the lessons learned here and things that we're excited about, but just want to highlight just what we've seen that makes a successful project. And that really, hinges on a common understanding of goals between our program, between the site hosts, between our applicants, between their installers, and ensuring that we all understand what we're trying to do, especially in the multifamily space. Those projects are a little bit different than a public L2 or L3 project. We're thinking about people who are residents, who are charging overnight typically, where their cars spend most of their time on site. And so ensuring that the power level meets expectations, that we're ensuring that the technology that's being installed is appropriate for shared parking or dedicated parking. Those have all been things that we've worked with our partners over the last year to really make sure we're on the same page and refine and ensure that, site hosts, when they hear that there's funding and that they hear that they can get their chargers paid for, the inclination is to just say yes. And I think that's a really great inclination, and I love that energy, and we want to support that. But there's so much complexity to these projects, whether that's interfacing with utilities or interfacing with residents, that I think that making sure everyone's on the same page and committed to navigating those complexities effectively is something that we've really learned over the last year. Going into that, planning for the unexpected, I think, has been another really important thing. Especially our lead applicants are not often our site hosts. And so they have to have those conversations with their site hosts about how much the site host is willing to pay or fund, if anything, to help bring these projects to success, and what those expectations are on the site host. And so navigating those conversations, the changing timelines, the uncertainties, has been something that we're helping to support grantees in, but also we've identified how increased cost, scheduling, and technology changes all can be unexpected challenges that projects have to face, but can also foster some good solutions as people try to problem solve. For example, whether that may be reducing the number of ports installed at a site, which can actually be a really appropriate change and help ensure that the project moves forward and not just stopped when there's so much good momentum. Another thing I think that it's easy to get really caught up in all the complexity of utilities and equipment and all of that, but when we're thinking about these benefits, these are people, these are almost always renters. I'm a renter myself, and so I definitely think a lot about how that changes how you think about a space and who accesses it and who doesn't have access. And we really want to, in our program, we've really learned about how the resident need and the perceived need don't always match. And how we're often building these projects for the future. I think when there is not a lot of funding for multifamily housing in general, especially affordable housing, it can feel like there's a lot of scarcity mindset about where funding goes, and ensuring that residents understand why investing in EV charging, even if it doesn't feel like the most pressing issue today, I think it has a lot of benefits for the future as we look at EV adoption rates and the cost of EVs going down. But also we've seen how by building EV charging stations at especially affordable housing and especially some of these older housing, getting those transformer upgrades are also going to unlock a lot of co-benefits such as access to solar and weatherization and heat pumps and all these other things that come with that the just transitions we're trying to facilitate in the state. So that's been a really exciting thing to see, is how EV charging is just the beginning and there's all these other co-benefits. And being able to talk to that and then being able to engage residents and other decision makers on those other benefits and investing in these upgrades can really help a project have more buy-in and navigate those uncertainties with a little bit more less stress. And with all that in mind, we're super excited because we're releasing our next iteration of the program. So this is Wave CP2. We released some draft program documents earlier this summer, and we had 5 amazing focus groups. We had surveys with generating almost 200 responses where we got amazing feedback, and we're wrapping that all up. And we anticipate releasing the RFA at the end of September. We have a lot less funding this time. We have only $10 million for multifamily and only $20 million for the full program. So about a fifth of the funding we had previously, which is definitely disappointing, but we're still really excited to build chargers across the state. And, I can't go into too many specifics because the RFA hasn't been released, but in those draft program documents, some things that we really wanted to acknowledge and reflect is that there's a lot of lessons learned from the first iteration of the program that we're embedding into this new program. So that includes multiple on-ramps into charging. Because we do grants, we're giving funding to a lot of entities who might not have ever considered charging before and even know where to start. So for the next iteration of the program, there'll be a site design grant where entities can simply go through the exercise of identifying what an appropriate site is and how to make those decisions before they're committed to building the chargers, just because that has been really challenging for a lot of our, especially smaller grantees. We've also, of course, recognize that there's a need for higher incentive levels. So initially, in our first iteration of the program, those incentives were about $7,500 to $10,000 per port. In the next iteration of the program, it'll be about $10,000 per port, maybe a little bit more. Though there also will be some flexibility regarding low power level 2s and higher power L2s. We have a small team, and so I know there's a lot of EV charging programs in the multifamily space that are able to be really specific about, dedicated parking versus shared parking and how to make an incentive that works for those. We don't have the capacity necessarily to be that specific, but we're using power levels as a proxy to try to get at that. So you'll see that in our next iteration of this program, that there'll be multiple different incentive levels and tracks based on power level to account for that. We also wanted to be flexible to offsite parking because multifamily sites often have different parking spots that wasn't captured in our first round of the program, and continue to have emphasis on overburdened communities and affordable housing. And we're also really excited to have an innovation grant in our next round to really identify and support different models of delivery. We're really curious about how low power L2, smart outlets, and other efforts like that can serve multifamily specifically. What models out there that we haven't explored that could serve use cases, especially in rural or tribal communities where the needs are a little bit more specific and maybe aren't being addressed in the current model. So that's the super high level overview, and excited to chat more later.
Thank you so much, Mara. I will go ahead and share the slides again. I did ask the audience a quick question. Feel free to ponder on it, respond, or excited to open it up at the end of this last presentation. And anyone working on new deployments of infrastructure for the very first time, or anyone who has previously installed infrastructure and has any best case learning outcomes. Excited to hear about those, or also anyone who's utilized incentives before in the past and can share how either that journey went or what it was like. Eager to hear anything. Yeah, with that, Michael, please take it away.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me. I'm Michael Ryer. I'm a senior program associate at Fourth. I work alongside Anna on assisting ODOT to help facilitate the community charging rebate program, which is what I'm here to talk about today. So overall, the community charging rebate program is designed to improve access to electric vehicle charging opportunities across Oregon. ODOT and Fourth's combined goal is to help increase the availability of charging infrastructure, particularly in areas where it's most needed. Next slide, please. So for just a quick overview, the program is focused on reducing the costs of equipment, installation, and maintenance for applicants while strategically placing level 2 EV chargers within multifamily housing locations, publicly accessible parking areas, and workplaces. Rebates in general range from 3,500 to 6,250 per port or up to 75% of eligible project costs, whichever is less. Please note that regarding multifamily homes, individual residents or tenants who are not the building owner are not eligible applicants. A project is ineligible for this program if the proposed location serves exclusively fleet vehicles or primarily as an individual residential home, even if the home-based business or a home office is present. Additionally, level 2 charging equipment installed under this program must be qualified by the Electric Power Research Institute, or EPRI, as meeting a set of minimum requirements determined by ODOT. Equity is a key priority for this program, with 70% of the total funding allocated to projects in rural and disadvantaged communities. We also plan to continue the program through the $10 million received from the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant for rebates. And some exciting updates to the program may soon include incorporating DC fast charging, as well as increased rebate amounts. And ODOT has partnered with Fourth to handle outreach, education, and technical assistance, and I'll go into some more detail about Fourth's role shortly. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. So through rounds 1 through 3, projects have spread across 27 out of 36 counties in Oregon. While not all counties are shown on this map, most of them are represented. To date, we have 231 project sites, of which 166 are in priority communities. And just for clarity, priority communities include both disadvantaged or rural communities. Disadvantaged communities are those that display high or medium-high levels of disparity according to ODOT's statewide equity layer. And rural communities are identified as rural or frontier on the Office of Rural Health's urban rural map. Of the 231 sites, 103 are in disadvantaged communities and 63 are in rural communities. Between all funding rounds, Fourth has actively engaged with communities by conducting extensive outreach efforts. We've built and leveraged both new and existing partnerships to continue targeting priority communities. And before the program launched, we worked to identify effective ways to reach these communities by gathering contacts from tourist and recreational sites, economic development leaders, local governments, and communities. And we've used various outreach methods, including newsletters, advertisements, one-on-one calls, email blasts, and both in-person and virtual presentations. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. And then lastly, I wanted to share some important resources. I am posting those into the chat right now alongside my work email that you can reach me by and ODOT's newsletter and Fourth's main page. And if you have any questions about the program at all, please don't hesitate to reach out via the program email, which is listed there. Any questions you have, I am the point person for ODOT's technical assistance, so feel free to reach me at michaelr@fourthmobility.org. Pre-installation applications take around 5 to 10 minutes, and post-installation applications can take from 10 to 15 minutes, provided you have the necessary information readily available. And like I said, all of those guidelines are on the ODOT page, but I'm happy to send those your way if you have specific questions. And the web page itself has detailed information where we have the pre and post application walkthroughs, some general guidelines, as well as a really nice working map that relays whether certain addresses that you type in qualify as priority communities. And lastly, round 4 is incoming, though we don't have an exact date for launch. So follow along with the newsletter to keep updated on that. And that was all I had. Thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Michael and panelists. If I can ask folks to come off on camera, just as the panelists come on camera. I know we had some questions in the chat. Want to take a moment for the audience. Yeah, a wealth of information from communities in charge, multifamily properties, to the incentives that Mara and Michael talked about. This kind of speaks to what Charge at Home's goal is to bring together expertise, incentives, and then the key part for the next portion of the roundtable is hearing about what's happening in reality. So anyone who's doing deployments, planning deployments, definitely have time here to answer your questions. I know some of the things I'm curious about is anyone who's deployed projects at multifamily housing in the past, anyone who's utilized incentives in the past, or is interested in these incentives. We have the experts here and happy to run through some examples. So with that, Anna, any questions you'd like us to start off with first?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you everyone for sharing about these great incentive programs across the different states. We had a great question come in, I believe, during Trisha's presentation from David Merrill saying, what are the typical processing times for the California rebates after final submission?
Awesome, thank you. I just want to make sure I understand your question, David. I think you're referencing maybe submitting your final payment request, how long it takes to get the rebate back. Typically we tell folks to allot at least 3 to 4 weeks for that. Oftentimes going through, if it's your first time applying, getting the documents in line as far as invoicing and all of that good stuff, it requires at least a couple times for us to go back and forth. But with that being said, we typically tell folks probably 3 to 4 weeks.
One thing I did want to mention, all right, is we have is the program good for all 50 states? Asking specifically about New Jersey.
Is this within reference to communities in charge, Brandon? I just want to confirm.
I think it might be, or in general, about the incentives that were discussed. I think I know the answer, but also just wanted, yeah, I think it's asking if anything talked about today is relevant to New Jersey.
For communities in charge, it just applies to California for right now.
And ODOT also just applies to Oregon for now. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think Brandon can jump in and share more about this, but there are definitely maybe not most states, but I don't want to speak for every state. There are lots of incentive programs state by state available for folks, including multifamily specific folks, but the Alternative Fuels Data Center is a great place to go to try to find some charging rebates. Additionally, if you use the Project Builder tool, I dropped the link in the chat, but I can reshare. If you type in a property in New Jersey or your property, our tool will filter incentive opportunities that are available in your location. And we try to keep that as up to date as we can. But yeah, that's a great question.
Thanks, Anna. No, that is a great question. And kind of speaking to the point of one of the great things about Charge at Home and the website and the project building tool resource specifically is even if you don't know the specifics yet, if you're planning a new project and, for example, perfect question like, hey, are there any incentives here? Always a great starting point because say you build a project in the project builder and then get connected with any of the team members at Charge at Home. And then we can kind of know more about your projects. It's always difficult to answer the question of are there incentives available? Usually there are. It is a different time in the EV space, so there might be less incentives on the horizon. So some of the incentives that are out there, it's actually a good time to get in. It's actually like if some of the incentive programs out there have already been funded previously and they're still alive, then it's kind of the best opportunity to take advantage of them. And sometimes those incentives, like some of the scoring and criteria, it's based on what you're building. And so if you haven't built yet, using the project tool before you scope out a whole project, you can sometimes modify a project scope to maximize the amount of incentives you can build towards. So all of a sudden, so you just wanted two because initially you're building with a certain utility service capacity in mind and a budget in mind. But if all of a sudden, say you actually build out four, I forget which one had a minimum port count. So now you weren't planning to do that, but all of a sudden, well, if you do it, it pretty much pays for itself, or if not more. and now you can get scoped out projects that can actually add more chargers. And that's the name of the game. I think one of the things here that Fourth is doing a great job leading with the resources that charge at home is basically connecting you to it's curating expertise. So think of not only a panelist here for the specific programs in these geographies, but nationwide, if you do have a project, we can absolutely do some research, connect you to someone locally, and help you along in your project. Thanks for asking the question. Also, I know sometimes typing is sometimes a limiter if folks like actually have a more substantive question, they always don't want to type it out. So I know this may be an audible, but I'm comfortable if anyone wants to raise their hand, no pressure to come on video, but if you want to go on unmute yourself, happy to take questions live and dive into some specifics. So if you'd like, feel free, raise your hand, ask. In the meantime, I do want to ask Mara. I want to commend, sounds really awesome, the number of sites statewide that you're aiming to deploy and the number of ports. To date, has there been any coalitions from the multi-housing, basically big developers in the state that have taken advantage of incentives, kind of helped shape the incentives, or what kind of has the market been responding to these incentives?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I have been in this role for less than a year, so I have not been able to see it from its initial design, but in this second round, as we've been designing it, we've gotten really good feedback, more from affordable housing developers and housing authorities. I think that one change that's important to contextualize here is that the Washington State Building Code now requires EV charging to be included in all new builds. And so I think that that has really embedded EV charging into these new projects in a way that the timelines don't always meet up with our incentive program. So I think a lot of the developers are planning for it, and if it happens to align with our program for these new builds, that's great. But if not, it's not. I mean, they have to do it. So I think that the really more talking to the affordable housing space and understanding where those constraints are and what the incentive level is to make these feasible has been really one area that we've been particularly looking for. But yeah, currently in our program, we have developers all across the states, from like the big corporate developers to regional housing authorities, and from installations ranging from 2 ports to 20. So it's pretty across the board.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I feel like we have a lot of West Coast representation here, and there are a lot of EVs sold. It's not always just because of the West Coast for specific reasons, but there's usually good weather, but also some colder weathers and different parts of the West. Um, and has there been any, this is an open question to anyone on the panel, has there been any indications from installers, basically people who day in and day out, maybe contractors, electricians who are, evaluating panel capacity, sourcing the equipment, installing it, working with utilities to gauge capacity, sometimes do new service runs if needed. Have there been any scenarios that you know of where feedback from the industry where if there wasn't enough service, there were different implementation styles, like instead of running a whole new utility service, they deployed on-site storage? Has there been any unique deployments like that? And if not, just commenting on any type of deployment story.
That's such a good question. We have seen that for our public charging. We have not seen it in multifamily yet. I've had a couple of conversations with one of our largest grantees and partners about this, and I'm like, what's the feasibility? Because that would really speed up timelines, especially with transformer upgrades. But I think there's reluctance from site hosts it's just they don't have experience with battery electric storage systems. So I think that's something that we're really interested in exploring, but we haven't seen it yet.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, actually, Stanislav, I see your hand up. I'm happy to feel free if you want to come on mute and ask a question. Happy to take it.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from New Jersey, and thank you for doing this webinar. I thought since you prompted audience to raise their hand, so I thought it would be maybe more efficient. I'm working at Easy Ride as well as a New Jersey Electric Vehicle Association, the flag you see in the back. And in Easy Ride, we are very heavy in eval certification, which is administered by Fourth. I see Michael Ryer here, so it's all great. And the Charge at Home program, it feels like it's a sister program to Charge at Work program, but it doesn't have any certifications. So, is it something that you plan in the future that those who will implement home charging, home multi-unit, we call it multi-unit dwelling in New Jersey, you call it multifamily housing, that these would get some certification? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I might just hop in for this. Great question, Stanislav, and thank you so much for mentioning the eval program and congrats on being certified. So Charge at Home, we do not have a certification currently, but we have talked about it internally as a potential for the future. But just as some context, Charge at Home was a 2-year funded project from the Department of Energy that served to build this platform and education tools for the multifamily industry. So our current funding is actually up at the end of this month. But the website will live on and there will be different iterations of Charge at Home and different products and potentially certifications mirroring eval in the future. So we don't have that right now, but we have that newsletter. If you stay tuned through Fourth, any announcements about a certification program would be dropped through there. But great question. Yes.
I just want to mention that in Easy Ride, the company leadership is insisting that we continue to certify sites for eval, even though the funding is non-existent. I don't know how they plan out, but from my view of ordinary employee, they want to keep going with eval, even though Fourth doesn't have funding.
Yeah, so the funding for Charge at Home is up end of September. So I cannot speak to eval myself. I know Michael and other colleagues of mine are able to speak more to that, but yes, that certification isn't going to be going anywhere, as far as I know. Thank you.
Yeah, great question on certification. I know we're at time now, so I just wanted to thank again our panelists. Thank everyone for joining. Please reach out to the team if you have specific projects, and great job, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.